What's going on, everyone? We have some big things brewing behind the scenes in the stock market right now. It was all over the place last week, but coming into this week, we have earnings season heating back up again. We have some crucial data about to release. Nancy Pelosi just made some huge trades, and we actually have some pretty sad news. So, Tom, let's get right into today's episode.
Yeah, 100%. So the S&P 500 had a pretty good day on Friday. We actually had a pretty good move back up. We bounced off that big 406 support. But the big thing that worries me for this week is that we're back up into this channel where we might end up going sideways a little bit again. But I'm definitely watching some of these big upper resistances, maybe around like 409.50 and then 410 overhead. There's some pretty big levels there. If we reject and fall back down, I think that we might be able to see some more downwards movement. Looking at the heat map, it was pretty mixed from last week. But Mike, I know that a long time ago, there was actually an article that came out about the IRS. And apparently whenever the Inflation Reduction Act passed in 2022, it kind of gave $80 billion in funding to the IRS. Now, a lot of people were arguing back then how that might be used. And people thought, oh, well, obviously they're going to hire people to look into our taxes more and audit us more because there's more payments than ever going through PayPal, Cash App, more transactions back and forth between friends for food and stuff like that. And, apparently some of that stuff, and especially stuff for, side businesses and stuff like that, has to be reported apparently. And it looks like they're going to be hiring a lot of people to enforce this. So they were obviously worried about it. And Mike, it looks like now there was a big announcement that they're hiring nearly 20,000 staff over the next 2 years with some of that funding. Now, a lot of people were putting arguments out in the past saying that, oh, they're not going to just hire a bunch of people out of nowhere because people are retiring and stuff like that over the next 10 years. But I don't know, Mike, that's quite a lot of people there within just 2 years.
Oh yeah, the IRS is they're definitely leveling up. You can say that. They have 20,000 fresh staff, and they're basically unlimited funds. To increase the enforcement. But also, you can see how they added in the article. A lot of this money is also going to go for customer service as well. So that's awesome. But yeah, so I know this was going pretty viral, especially on Twitter. So happy tax season, everyone, and the IRS is leveling up. So there's the news there. And while we're on the topic of government financial stuff, we can say, we cannot ignore the giant new trades that none other than Nancy Pelosi actually disclosed the other day. So it turns out that Nancy Pelosi is quite the fan of Apple, and it was just disclosed that she actually just bought 10,000 shares of Apple at a strike price of $80 each. So right now, Apple is lingering right around $165 each. It has just been powering up over the past couple months, and 10,000 shares at $80 each is pretty awesome. Now, to be fair, she just really bought like a deep in the money call option, so she had to pay a lot to actually be able to buy Apple at $80 each. But either way, she wouldn't be making this trade unless she was pretty bullish on Apple going forward. So take this information how you want, but when Nancy Pelosi makes a trade, normally you don't want to ignore it.
Yeah, and back in May, Apple was pretty low compared to where it was now. It was like in like the 140s. Now we're all the way up around 164, 165. And like you said, you just cannot ignore a trade like that. So she exercised that, Mike. Looks like she has a ton of shares now down there. I wonder, is she going to start selling some covered calls on those shares? I don't know. That might be how she gets out of the trade. Maybe sell some covered calls up around 180 or 170. Maybe we'll have to wait for some more reports to come out. But those big trades are always fun to follow. And man, that's crazy. $80 a share on Apple. It's at 160 right now. That's well over 100% already.
Exactly. And like I said, to be fair, she had to pay quite the premium to get shares at this point, but still, she's pretty bullish. So keep a close eye on Apple. What I will say, Tom, though, is, when you zoom out on Apple, it has been making lower and lower highs over the past year to year and a half. So I thought that was very interesting. And we also saw a lot of insiders selling Apple shares over like the past couple weeks and months as well. So it's like a interesting divergence.
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, Apple's all over the place. And honestly, Mike, like these are some pretty big up and down swings here on Apple over the past couple years as well. So I guess it's a crazy stock. And I know that Apple's doing a lot of stuff, obviously, for the future. They're looking into even augmented reality and stuff like that. So maybe some of that stuff will help them as they go. And I know that there's been that big trend line that they've been kind of bouncing off of lately as well. So I wonder if we'll end up staying above it this time because I don't know. A lot of stocks seem like they're breaking out. Even the SPY is above its big trend line here.
Yeah, it's definitely been a pretty solid past couple of months. So good stuff there. But Tom, I know a bunch of people love to watch earnings, and it's good to say that earnings season is finally heating back up again. So looking at the schedule, we can see we have Tilray on Monday after close. This is a marijuana company, for those of you who don't know. It's one of the craziest stocks out there, but as we go on throughout the week, we have CarMax on Tuesday. Nothing too crazy. I mean, we have like Louis Vuitton on Wednesday before open, so that's good. But I would say like Thursday and Fridays where things start to heat up more. We have Delta Airlines, we have Progressive, Citibank, Wells Fargo, PNC, BlackRock, JP Morgan, United Health. So I think it'll be a pretty interesting week on the earnings side of things.
Yeah, and I honestly cannot wait for those banks to start reporting, especially with all that crazy stuff that's been going on with, all those other banks like obviously Silicon Valley and some of the other smaller ones like FRC. I know JP Morgan, Citigroup, and a lot of these are a lot bigger, so I don't think that they're going to be affected too badly by this, but it's definitely going to be interesting with all that stuff going on. So keep the banks on the radar. I will say even CarMax and Tilray are pretty interesting. Looking at Tilray's chart, Mike, they've been all over the place. And actually on Friday, Tilray had a huge bounce off that $2.40 support right back up.
There we go. And then, Tom, we cannot forget about the economic schedule for the week. It's definitely going to be an interesting one with a lot of big news. Fill us in.
Yeah, so I think this is actually one of the biggest things for the week. This will probably be what is the most watched event of the week here, being the CPI event on Wednesday, 1 hour before the market opens. We're going to get that core inflation rate coming out along with the regular inflation rate month over month. So keep that on the radar. That's going to be huge. And then on the same day, right around market close, we're going to have the FOMC minutes coming out. So it's going to be a little bit there before the market closes at 2 p.m. Eastern time there. But the big thing is going to be that CPI and the inflation rate there 1 hour before open on Wednesday. The Feds really watch that. Powell and obviously everybody always talks about that. And that's going to definitely be the big event, I think, that will swing the markets this week. And that could even make some of those ETFs like SQQQ and other ones pop off if it negatively affects the market.
I hope you guys are ready for this week because it's going to be a big one. We have inflation data, we have the FOMC minutes report, we have earnings season heating back up again, all while the SPY is at a pretty big point. So I hope you guys are ready because it's going to be a pretty good week. So Tom, with that being said, let's get right into some setups for the week. Now, I bet this first one's probably not going to be too popular with most people, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm looking at Amazon. And it's to the downside. So when we look at Amazon, we're right around this $100 support. It's a crucial level. If Amazon breaks below $100 and the SPY also starts flowing down, or if the SPY is also weak, I think Amazon could actually see a pretty decent dump this week. And I think that could make for a pretty good put day trade. So keep this one on your watch list throughout the rest of the week. I will say a crucial aspect of this setup though is we need to see Amazon below that $100 support, but also the SPY falling down. It's I don't care if Amazon breaks below 100 and the SPY is rocketing up and making new highs, because then it's if the SPY is rocketing up, Amazon can easily just consolidate or actually also go up. So I'm looking for Amazon and SPY to, be weak, and then I trade Amazon to the downside.
Yeah, I will say Amazon's been quite the monster lately. It's been sometimes it follows the SPY directly, sometimes it moves, totally opposite this year. The way that this thing's been falling down is insane, and it actually hasn't recovered up too much compared to a lot of the other stocks. So very interesting here. It's definitely seeming weak, and that's a big resistance here, even at 103 and 105. If I go back here and circle, there's definitely some big resistances there. So I'll definitely be watching it down too, Mike. And I think that we might see the SPYs start to sell back off a little bit more too. I'm actually watching another play to the downside with Visa. I think that some of these credit card companies might actually start to fall down a little bit more. You can see Visa's actually up quite a bit recently, hit a big support around 210 and came up here now is making a bit of lower highs around 230. So I'm going to look for a bit more of an extension to the downside, maybe a couple more red days, especially if we get below this big 224 to 225 support from Friday. If we fall under there, then I'll look for more movement down. Kind of like Mike said, though, like if the overall market's rocketing and all the banks and Visas going up, then, don't play to the upside. Make it break down and make that market, fall down with it.
You know it. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is NIO. So we saw a bunch of bullish flow with all of these China stocks the other week, and they kind of pulled back a little bit. But looking at NIO, it's right around this $9 level. And honestly, I would not be too surprised if it retested the range between $10 and $10.50 in the short term. These China stocks are pretty crazy, so keep that in mind. They have giant moves. But, they had some really good flow the other week, and, we're just like retesting support. So I definitely have NIO on my watch list to the upside. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we retest 10 to 10.50.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big support here, right around $8.80. I don't know what's been going on with NIO, Mike, but that has been quite the drop the past few days. Like compared to BABA, BABA's actually stayed up a bit higher, but I will say some of those other EV stocks like Rivian, Lucid, and others have kind of been bad. Let's see XPEV and others. Yeah, even XPEV was down. So I guess it was just the EV stocks over there in China, but that is definitely a big support. I will definitely watch it. And you brought up NIO, a nice EV stock. I'm actually watching Tesla now. I think Tesla could go in both directions here. Lately, Tesla has been rejecting in a huge way under $200, and we've been seeing a huge push to the downside, just like NIO last week. I mean, it was terrible for Tesla as well. If Tesla gets under this big 180 support here, I will definitely watch for some puts to the downside. And for all the scalpers out there, I think this can actually be a nice play in both directions. So there's a nice resistance here right around 187 to the upside. If we break that up, I'll actually watch for some calls tomorrow. If we end up falling under 184 here, which was a very nice support from Thursday, or I should say from Wednesday, considering the market was closed Friday. But if we get under that support, I will watch for puts down to 180, and then under 180, I'll look for more movement down. But there's a lot of big levels coming up on Tesla, Mike, along with the overall market, and even like Amazon and a lot of these other big stocks are at very crucial points right now.
You know it. All right. Well, with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have TLT to the upside.
TLT, look at this. I will say TLT has been running up over the past couple weeks, and it's actually right around a recent high, right around 109. So if we break out above 109 this week, I will definitely look for calls. Just be a little bit careful of a double top on this, but let's hope that momentum continues.
Sounds good. With the next one, we have NVIDIA to the downside.
Yeah, NVIDIA definitely had a pretty good last couple days last week, but I will say that big drop down on Tuesday night heading into Wednesday was terrible. If we end up pulling back under 268, I will watch for puts, potentially with a target down to 264.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Meta, and we need both directions.
Metas, yeah. So Meta actually had a great recovery Friday, great breakout, continued to show its strength. If it breaks the double top from Friday right around 217, I will watch for calls. But if we do get back under 215, which was a pretty decent area from last week, then I'll look for puts again. I will say Meta surprised me quite a bit there with that run up to the upside.
True that. So you guys heard Tom, we have that upside level for potential day trade up, and we have that downside level for potential day trade to the downside tomorrow. And then don't forget about NVIDIA with that downside level as well. And then good old TLT with that upside level as well. But it is now time for the big money trade of the day. We had $2.33 million go into POOL. And more specifically, it was actually the pool 270 strike put options that expire on May 19th of 2023. So basically, Pool Corporation is like a giant wholesale distributor for just like pool equipment, so swimming pool equipment. Looking at this stock, it has been doing pretty bad over like the past year or so. It has highs right around $582 a share that it actually made towards the end of 2021. And ever since then, it's just been slowly fading down. Right now, it's right around like 325. These put options are the 270 strike, which is actually pretty far out of the money. So this whole setup is not something that we usually see given how far out of the money these puts are, which is definitely a risk. So basically, as we look at this setup, there are a couple of critical questions we need to ask ourselves. The first thing is, do we think the smart money is buying these puts or selling these puts? If they are buying these puts, they're expecting a hell of a drop with pool by May 19th. If they're selling these puts, they don't they're just selling the puts and they don't care what pool does as long as that it is above $270 a share. So this trade is very interesting. If you are someone who thinks that they bought the puts, expect a giant drop out of pool soon, because the only reason you would buy puts this far out of the money is if you know a giant drop is coming.
Yeah, exactly. And let me know in the comments what you guys think they did. Personally, I think that they sold these, especially given that it's a May expiration. If it was further out, maybe I would have thought maybe they bought them, because who knows, maybe they're looking at macroeconomic issues. Right now we've been seeing a lot of obviously problems with inflation. People are having more money in the credit cards and stuff like that. Maybe like that'll hurt pools, obviously. It's not like the good times of 2020 and 2021, whenever everybody was getting their what were they, Mike? The checks from the government where they
the stimmy checks.
Yeah, the stimmy checks. They'd go out and get some stimulus. Hey, I just got a $1,500 stimulus check. Let's put a down payment on a pool or something. So it's not those times anymore. But with the short-term expiration, I'd say they're selling it, especially with $2 million. And if we get to 270 by May 19th, Mike, I don't know. That's going to be pretty bad for the pool people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Tom, the times of the money printing machine, it's now over. Jerome Powell turned that printer off a little bit ago. We're actually seeing the I guess you could call it the money vacuum. Quantitative tightening now. So like you said though, I mean, it's like quantitative tightening will hurt more industries than other industries, if that makes sense. So it's like, when I look at like a swimming pool company, a wholesale distributor of swimming pool equipment, I would not feel too confident when the economy struggles. It's like I'll feel a lot better owning like Walmart or something like that, or like Kraft Heinz, rather than a company like this. So the whole economic situation has been getting worse and worse, especially over the past couple of years. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of money in there. And like I said, I think that they're shorting it just because how far it is. And that pool, pools are obviously bought by, generally more wealthy people or, middle class and up. So, you would think that sometimes maybe those people weren't even getting stimulus checks, but, it just depends where the money flows. I definitely feel that economic thing. And honestly, this company's been fantastic over the past few years. It seems like it almost had a bit of a bubble or just got way overinflated here in the short term.
Yeah, it's had a pretty big run up. Actually, if we go, let's say we look at I'm gonna look at a max weekly really quickly. If I go to, I don't want to start in like 2009 because I feel like that's unfair because like every company was horrible around then. But let's say I go to like 2013. This stock was trading for around like $46 a share, and right now it's around 325, and the highs were right around 582. So yeah, it has had a pretty solid run up. I mean, what is that? 1,200% just over, around 10 years or so?
Yeah, exactly. 1,200%. And to where it is now, it's still up 620%. So that is some fantastic returns. I mean, it's hard to find stocks that have returns like that. Honestly, you have to go to like Tesla and a lot of those big tech stocks to see returns in that way. And, most people probably wouldn't have thought a pool company would do that.
True that. All right, Tom. Well, I am pumped for this week. I think we're going to see a bunch of great movement and price action. I'm also very excited to see what this inflation data comes in at. Looking at the inflation rate last meeting, or last report, I should say, it came in right around 6%, which is, it's good to see that it's decreasing from what it was at back in June of 2022. But it looks like this next inflation reading is actually expected to come in around like 5.2 to 5.3%. So it's good to see. And then, of course, we can't forget about earnings season heating back up again. So I'm pretty excited. Do you have any other last minute thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy week. It was very mixed on Friday. I'm hoping that some of those earnings towards the end of the week with banks can maybe be pretty fun as well. Don't forget about Tilray on Monday after close. I'm still keeping my eyes on GLD. I still think that that's going to be a pretty big stock for the next few weeks. Even if we do start to see some pullbacks, it can still be a pretty good one to trade, in my opinion. So keep your eyes on some of those metals. I think that they could still be on the radar, maybe kind of in the background.
Good stuff. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And last but not least, huge shout out to today's Discord member of the day, Anti, in the chat. You've been in the chat for around a month and a half now, and your activity has been pretty solid. So make sure to keep it up. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's have an amazing week.